So let's ask my colleague Juliana Layinka in our London studios this morning. Juliana, good morning. Let's shift gear a little bit and talk about your environment. About an hour or two ago, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was on a special program on the BBC. Is there any sound bites that you heard from him about the destination of Brexit and what has been done and all of that? What new things are we learning from the Prime Minister? What did we learn on that BBC show?
Good morning, Bosun. Yes, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, just wrapped up, as you said, a special interview, a series of special interviews, which all the leaders of the main parties will be conducting with the BBC in the run-up to the election. There's only about 4 weeks to go now, or less than 4 weeks. And, you know, they started at the top, which really is Brexit, considering get Brexit done has been Boris Johnson's slogan since he became the Tory leader. And that's really where the conversation was heading. We're talking about, you know, the fact that there have been 3 deadlines that the Conservative Party have missed. Of course, you know, Boris Johnson may say it's been Parliament that delayed his 31st or Halloween Brexit, but there were 2 deadlines before that on the 29th of March and the 12th of April. And really, they were trying to get some clarity about that. We know the 31st of January is the agreed date with the EU, but the contentious point at the moment is the Brexit transition date. So, of course, even if we do leave on the 31st of January, we will still in effect be within the EU until the end of December 2020. And a lot of critics are saying that if we do leave on the 31st of January, there just isn't time and that needs to be extended. So there was lots of discussion on that. Of course, even though this is a Brexit election, it isn't just Brexit that people in the UK are concerned about. They're also concerned about the NHS. There's been some serious cuts underneath the Conservative government. He was laying out lots of his issues there. And, you know, this is Britain. I know all our viewers will know that immigration is a big election ballot decider. You know, at the moment, the Labour Party and the Conservatives are not really making it abundantly clear whether or not they'll be cutting immigration, will they'll be opening doors, would it be skilled or unskilled. So very interesting discussion. He's still with the BBC at the moment answering some viewers' questions, but Brexit did remain, you know, the top billing.
Of course, it's not going anywhere. But again, with the Brexit and the elections and all of that, it looks like this political divorce from the EU is going to cost almost everyone on the side around the table. So countries like Australia and others are asking for compensation, trade compensation from the UK and from the EU. So how much do they want and why?
Well, this is a growing story. And of course, as you said, you know, Brexit has ramifications further than the European continent. And the Goods Council of the World Trade Organization, they were meeting in Geneva yesterday. I think their meeting wraps up today. And that involves countries such as Australia, India, Brazil, and several others. And they're really not happy with the entire Brexit process. They want clarification on exactly what free tariff deals will be conducted with the EU and the UK, because they benefit from some free tariffs. There's a free tariff quota, which means that there are certain farming goods that come into the EU and the UK that have 0 tariffs on them, but they're restricted in numbers. But of course, once Brexit does take place, that these countries are worried that Britain and the EU may kind of push them out of these quotas. So they're really not happy about that. And they do want compensation. Now, when it comes to the World Trade Organization, compensation doesn't necessarily mean money. It just means that there'll be free tariffs. You know, Australia in particular are very unhappy because they said with these 3 deadlines that have since passed, they stopped certain goods coming into the EU and the UK, particularly beef and dairy products, because they didn't want, you know, their farmers to get caught up in some really high tariff bills. So they've been discussing and they want answers. But of course, considering we're in a deadlock in the UK because of the election, they won't be getting those answers until at least the end of January.
Quite a bit, a very messy issue there with the Brexit. But again, let's just wrap up the market week, Juliana. What are some of the top stories for today being Friday? Is it still politics or anything coming from the market straight, away from the politics, the Brexit conversation, the soundbites on television and wherever?
Well, it's a bit thin in terms of corporate news in the UK at the moment. The FTSE opened up higher, about 30 points, and that's really because they're hoping that the tariff war between China and the US could soon wrap up. But one of the big stories coming out of the UK at the moment is BT. Their shares were down by 2.5% this morning. They were the biggest faller, and that's because Labour, the opposition party, sorry to go into politics, they've pledged that they'll be giving, if they win, they'll be giving free broadband and internet access to every individual and business across the UK. And they also said that they will be planning to nationalise part of BT. Shareholders weren't happy and their shares fell. At intraday, I suppose what the city in London will be looking at are EU inflation figures. We had ours out earlier this week. Of course, we know Germany managed to get themselves out of recession. So it seems as if in the UK, we'll be looking at Europe for our sentiment.
Juliana, very, very interesting. I don't know what else politicians will not promise to get votes. Free broadband for everyone? Okay. Whatever free you get, let us know. Have a great day and great weekend, Juliana. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll take a break, everyone.